Remember the feeling of waking up on that first morning of the summer holidays, the sun streaming through thin cotton curtains, no alarm clock, no school uniform laid out on the chair, just 6 whole weeks stretching ahead like an endless adventure. The house would still be quiet, but you could hear it already, the ice cream van's distant melody drifting through the open window, the sound of someone's mum beating a rug in the back garden, the sharp crack of leather on willow from the cricket pitch down the road. You'd pull on yesterday's shorts and a faded t-shirt, wolf down a bowl of cornflakes, and be out that front door before your mum could give you a list of chores. The pavement was already warm under your the whole street smelled of cut grass and distant bonfires, and somewhere, somehow, you just knew today was going to last forever. But it didn't, did it? Those summers disappeared so quietly we barely noticed them slipping away. The summers of the 1960s were something else entirely, not just a break from school, but a complete transformation of life itself. For 6 precious weeks, British kids lived in a different world, one without schedules, without supervision, without the constant hum of screens and notifications. Today, we're going to walk back through those sun-drenched streets and remember 12 things that every British kid did during those long, golden summers. So kick off your shoes, settle in, and let's remember what summer really used to feel like. There was an unspoken rule in every neighborhood. You came home when the streetlights came on, not a minute before. Your mum would send you out after breakfast with a simple instruction: be back for tea. And that was it. No mobile phones to check in, no texts asking where you were. You were just ... out. Somewhere, you'd roam in packs, inventing games that lasted for hours. The lamppost was home base. Mrs. Henderson's hedge was out of bounds. You'd play until your legs ached and your throat was dry, until someone's mum would lean out a window and shout that tea was ready. And when those orange lights finally buzzed to life, you'd reluctantly head home, already planning tomorrow's adventures. The freedom was absolute. The trust was complete. Saturday morning meant pocket money, a handful of coins that felt like a fortune, maybe sixpence, maybe a shilling if you'd been particularly good. And there was only one destination, the corner shop, with its bell that jangled when you pushed open the door and its smell of newspaper and penny sweets. You'd stand there for ages, staring into those glass jars lined up behind the counter, flying saucers, sherbet fountains, blackjacks, fruit salads. The shopkeeper would wait patiently while you did the mental arithmetic. 4 blackjacks or 2 sherbet fountains. The decision felt monumental. Eventually, you'd point to your choices, count it out into a little paper bag, twisted at the top. You'd walk out with your treasure, already sucking on a lemon bonbon, feeling like the richest kid in Britain. Every summer, somewhere in your neighborhood, there was camp building happening. You'd scavenge materials like pirates hunting treasure, old sheets from home, bits of rope, cardboard boxes from behind the shops. And if you were really clever, you'd nick a tarpaulin from someone's shed. The construction could take days. You'd argue about the design, drape sheets over branches, weight them down with bricks, create little rooms and secret entrances. Inside, you'd store your provisions, a bottle of pop, some biscuits you'd smuggled from home, maybe a torch if you had one. These weren't just dens. They were headquarters, castles, spaceships, secret societies. They were proof that you could build something, create something, claim a little corner of the world as your own. On scorching summer days, there was one guaranteed refuge, the municipal swimming baths. You'd set off in the morning with your swimming costume rolled up in a towel, a few coins for entry in your pocket. The changing rooms smelled of chlorine and damp concrete. You'd emerge, goosebumps already rising, and edge toward the pool where the water sat green-blue under the summer sky. Most pools were outdoor back then, open-air lidos that felt impossibly glamorous. You'd dare each other to jump from the high board. You'd practice holding your breath underwater until your lungs burned. And when you finally got out, shivering and chlorine-bleached, you'd head to the little kiosk for a fizzy pop or a bag of crisps. Your bike wasn't just transportation, it was freedom on 2 wheels. A Raleigh chopper, if you were lucky, or more likely, some hand-me-down model with a wonky saddle and handlebars wrapped in electrical tape. But it didn't matter what you rode. What mattered was that you could go anywhere. You'd set off in the morning with your mates, a convoy of bikes wobbling down the road. No helmets, no high-waist jackets, just the wind in your hair and the thrill of speed. You'd race down hills, hands off the handlebars, feeling invincible. school. You'd bike to the park, to the shops, to that field 3 miles away where someone said there was a crashed airplane there never was. Your legs would be covered in chain oil marks. Your knees would be scarred from that time you came off on the gravel. But that bike meant you weren't stuck at home. You could explore. You could adventure. Every street had its own circuit of games that rotated through the summer like a ritual calendar. Hopscotch, drawn in chalk on the pavement. British Bulldog, which usually ended with someone in tears. Knockdown Ginger, stuck in the mud. What's the time, Mr. Wolf? Kirby, where you'd throw a ball at the opposite curb for hours on end. These games needed nothing. No equipment, no rulebook, no adult supervision. They were passed down from older kids to younger ones. Everyone knew them. Everyone played them. A ball, a piece of chalk, a group of kids, and suddenly you had a game that could last until tea time. You'd argue about the rules, accuse people of cheating, storm off in a huff, then be back 10 minutes later because you'd already forgotten what you were angry about. The annual seaside trip was the highlight of any summer, whether it was a family outing to Blackpool, Brighton, or Margate, or a Sunday school trip in a coach that smelled of diesel and unwrapped sandwiches. It was an expedition of almost mythical proportions. You'd start early, packed into the back of the car or the coach, clutching your bucket and spade. The journey felt endless, full of, "Are we nearly there yet?" and the rising excitement as you finally caught your first glimpse of the sea. Once there, you'd hit the beach like an invading army, bucket and spade deployed immediately. Construction of elaborate sandcastles beginning in earnest. You'd paddle in the freezing water. You'd beg for ice cream, candy floss, a ride on the donkeys. You'd collect shells and pebbles that seemed magical at the seaside, but looked ordinary once you got them home. The fish and chips tasted better there, eaten from newspaper, vinegar soaking through. And when you finally trudged back to the car, sandy, sunburned, exhausted, you'd sleep the whole way home, dreaming of waves. Before the internet, before video games became ubiquitous, there were comics. The Beano, the Dandy, Tiger Bunty, if you were a girl. Every week, they'd arrive at the news and you'd spend your pocket money on the latest issue, then read it cover to cover until the pages were soft with handling. Dennis the Menace, Desperator Dan, the Bash Street Kids. These characters were your friends, your heroes. You'd sprawl on your bed or out in the garden, lost in those inky pages. The annuals that came out at Christmas were even better. Thick hardback books, full of stories and puzzles that would last you months. Comics taught you to love reading, to lose yourself in stories, to use your imagination. You'd trade them with your mates, argue about which was better. In a world without constant entertainment, comics were treasure. If you lived anywhere near the countryside, summer meant haymaking. Farmers needed all the help they could get, and kids were willing volunteers. Drawn by the promise of adventure and maybe a few coins at the end of the day, you'd head out to the fields where the cut hay lay in great golden rows, drying in the sun. The work was hard, gathering the hay into bundles, loading it onto trailers. The dust would get everywhere. You'd itch from the dry grass, sweat under the fierce sun, but it felt important, real. You were doing actual work, contributing something. The farmer might let you drive the tractor for a few yards, or you'd ride on top of the hay wagon. At the end of the day, covered in dust and exhausted, you'd feel a sense of accomplishment that no amount of pocket money could buy. Saturday morning at the cinema wasn't just entertainment, it was an institution. The ABC Miners or Odeon Saturday Club, where hundreds of kids would pack into the local picture house for a morning of films, cartoons, and complete glorious chaos. You'd queue up outside with your entrance money, join the stampede when the doors opened. The lights would dim, and magic would flicker to life on that enormous screen. Cartoons, first Tom and Jerry, maybe some Looney Tunes, then a serial, usually something involving cowboys or space adventures, always ending on a cliffhanger. The manager would try to maintain order, often failing spectacularly. Kids would cheer for the heroes, boo the villains. It was bedlam. It was wonderful. And when you'd finally tumble out into the bright summer daylight, the whole weekend still stretched ahead. Every kid in the 60s was a collector. Nature provided an endless supply of treasures. Conkers in late summer, wildflowers pressed between the pages of heavy books, tadpoles in jam jars, butterflies that you'd catch in nets made from your mum's old stockings. You'd come home with your pockets full of interesting stones, feathers, seed seed pods, bits of colored glass worn smooth by time. Your bedroom would become a museum of natural wonders, jars of pond water going murky, collections of leaves turning brown. That bird's nest you found in the hedge, you'd spend hours watching tadpoles grow legs, observing caterpillars spinning cocoons, categorizing your stone collection by color and size. These collections taught you patience, observation, curiosity. They connected you to the seasons, to the life cycles of things, to the astonishing variety of the world right outside your door. Without smartphones or tablets, summer days meant inventing your own fun. You'd put on shows in someone's back garden, charging parents tuppence to watch your terrible performance. You'd make go-karts from old prom wheels and wooden crates, racing them down hills with no thought for brakes or safety. You'd organize elaborate games of hide-and-seek that encompassed entire streets. You'd put on puppet shows using socks and a cardboard box. You'd dig for treasure in the garden, convinced you'd find Roman coins or buried gold. The boredom forced creativity. The lack of options bred imagination. You learned that entertainment didn't come from a screen. It came from within, from your ability to transform the ordinary into the extraordinary. Looking back at these simple pleasures, you realize they all had something in common. Freedom. Not the curated, supervised, organized kind of childhood we've created today, but real, slightly dangerous, completely unsupervised freedom. The freedom to be bored, the freedom to find your own entertainment, the freedom to scrape your knees, make mistakes, and figure things out for yourself. Those summers in the 60s gave us something precious, a sense of independence, of capability, of belonging to a community that looked out for each other without helicopters. We learned resilience by riding our bikes until we fell off. We learned creativity by building dens from rubbish. We learned social skills by playing games that required negotiation and compromise. The world has changed, mostly for the better in many ways, but something was lost in that change. Something about trust, about community, about letting children inherit the summer and make it their own. So what do you remember? What summer tradition has stayed with you all these years? Share your memories in the comments below. Let's keep these summers alive, at least in the stories we tell, because for those of us who lived them, those summers will never really be gone. They're still there, waiting in our memories, warm and golden and full of possibility, still waiting for the streetlights to come on.